Good, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to Citizen 8, where we wrap the week's current affairs with the best political team on television from a very Auckland perspective. Warning, we're as fair and balanced as Fox News. Joining me tonight on my revolving panel of bloggers and Auckland opinion shapers, here's the last angry blogger and was voted as having the most sensible haircut on television. Editor of the mighty Two Mickey blog and reformed libertarian, whatever that means, Mr. Timothy Selwyn. And when he isn't self-editing the issues of the day down to 140 characters with the flagellating passion of Opus Dei, he was formerly blogging at the upmarket public address when New Zealand and air funding is only a mere click away. Satirist and tweeter, David Slack. Welcome to you both. Coming up tonight, issue 1. What does Paul Henry have to do for TVNZ to sack him? Burn the flag, strangle a native wood pigeon live on television, or spit on Neil Finn during an interview? Issue 2. John Kerr's optimistic that there won't be a double-dip recession despite NZIER's latest survey that shows the largest gap ever reported between what they expected to happen in the economy and what actually happened. Is John Kerr's optimism medicated or a ray of bright light that will act as a beacon to guide New Zealand towards greatness? Issue 3 tonight. The votes are due back this weekend. Who will win the mayoralty in Christchurch, Wellington and Auckland? And we'll end the show on a final word. But let's kick things off with issue 1. Paul Henry's remarkable comments to the Prime Minister regarding the Governor-General were jaw-dropping this week. Effectively, Paul was calling for a white Governor-General because non-white Governor-Generals are apparently not New Zealand-looking enough. He has been sent home without pay for 2 weeks, which begs the question, what on earth does Paul Henry have to do to get sacked? Tim, Paul Henry said he was never apologised for causing outrage. Does that sound like he is very sorry? What are your thoughts?
Well, he issued, I think, 2 or 3 statements. The third one, I think, was in the form of abuse down the driveway with flying fists and all that sort of thing.
That's right, yes.
But I think he was trying to preserve his position, basically. He doesn't want to, in an employment sense, do anything damaging so that the TVNZ will sack him completely, and he wants to preserve it as much as he can. And then, on the other hand, he's got this reputation as being, and the Prime Minister uses it all the time, shock jock, in order to get away from people who he's associated with in the past or whatever. And he's in a bit of a sticky wicket. But as for his apologies, though, I mean, how close to the line do you want to call? I mean, each time he's serving back further and further towards the line, and you're going, is this the game, is to try and get yourself out?
Yeah.
You know?
Being a shock jock is fine, but constantly insulting minority groups who can't fight back seems just a little outrageous, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, did you see the actual interview itself? Because what I saw was probably what everyone saw on the internet or whatever, tweet, and you just see the raw
offending passage.
Yes, the passages and so forth, and you go, that is outrageous.
Yeah.
And then you see the actual clip and you go, what the Prime Minister was doing was trying to close him down.
Yes.
Because he saw early on
where this was going,
and that was to Paul Henry.
Yep.
You know, this was a challenge. Oh, good, now I can go further and further, and he was just shutting down as a tactic.
Yep.
And that only worked up to a point, and then when he reached over the line with the New Zealander comment, he put him down completely. I'll choose you.
Yes.
Choose you, mate.
Yes.
And then he suddenly came back and then apologised later on. And this was all in a period of 5 or 6 seconds. And it actually resolved itself. The Prime Minister was offended by what was going on. He tried to shut him down, and he basically got like a quasi, as much as you're ever going to get out of Paul Henry, apology from it, all within the space of like 10 seconds.
You've reminded me of something that happened when I used to be on breakfast every couple of weeks on a Friday to do the Week in Review. And I've found, I did it for about 4 years, and to begin with I enjoyed it a lot. He was funny, but he was also measured. But he seemed, and I think it was partly because the people running him gave him a looser and looser leash, or just didn't know how to control him, to get stroppier and willing to vent what he was actually thinking. And that's the key, what he actually thinks. And what he actually thinks is bloody repugnant.
Yeah.
And you'll recall when the Susan Boyle thing happened, the conceit that we had for that year was that you nominated a toast and an egg because it was breakfast,
That's right, that's right, yeah.
Anyway, I said, went off script and said, I'm going to offer you the egg for doing the Susan Boyle thing you did on Tuesday, at the start of the week. Would you like to give an apology? This is your chance to set it right.
Yep.
And I thought, well, I'm doing some good here, because I felt a bit like Ben Gracewood, that, you know, if you go on doing this thing, you're aiding and comforting the intolerance and bigotry, you know. Yeah. So I said, you know, would you like to apologise? Well, he just took this as an opportunity to do exactly what you described just then, Tim. That he just went further, and he said, if anybody was did the faux apology and said, I didn't mean that, but went on to commit fresh insults. Well, long time to tell this story, but the upshot was that this stuff, they put everything online from that breakfast show, but that never saw the light of day.
Oh, really? How interesting. TVNZ, David, initially claimed we loved Paul Henry because he said the things we quietly think. Which people think these things? Redneck, banjo-twanging bigots who want white governor-generals. Is that who the public broadcaster think that they're supposedly appeasing by allowing Paul Henry to stay on?
What depresses me is to see in the following days that it's possibly a good third of the country think it.
That's right.
And however, do you say what a third of the country thinks or what 2/3 of it thinks? And more to the point, where did public broadcasting suddenly lose its compass so badly that it couldn't see that there is an obligation to uphold fairness and tolerance, and rather than this idea of saying what people are quietly thinking? If you know people are quietly thinking the kinds of things that Oswald Mosley used to encourage,
that's right,
then you do something about that.
Yeah.
If this was the BBC, this guy's feet wouldn't have touched the ground.
Yes.
He'd have been gone.
Yep.
And they wouldn't have had a tin ear that left them fully 24 hours to even realise there was a problem.
Is this Andy Brotherston at TVNZ, or is this the Prime Minister's office himself?
Both.
Well, both and neither. See, you've got a whole building of people there who would. Anthony Flannery should have been thinking about this, and anybody who had any directorial control over this should have been thinking about it.
They're smarter than this, aren't they? They're smarter than this.
Well, they're smarter, or they're just not thinking. And this is, I think, actually the real problem. There is this momentum to this ship that just carries it on, and nobody really thinks very much about what the hell they're doing there. They simply want to make sure that the punters roll in each morning so that the advertisers keep paying the dollars. And so, did it rate? What are the numbers? Never mind whether it offended anybody. Never mind whether it said that you're not a New Zealander if your colour isn't white. And let's remember that. That is the
But they think that's just a left-wing backlash and proves the power of the left-wing media. And orchestrating a campaign to
What are
bring
New
them
Zealanders who are not white supposed to think about this giggle fest between Paul Henry and Prime Minister?
Who cares?
Really?
That's the attitude that Paul Henry was encapsulating.
That's
and
right.
that little sequence was who cares.
Get
That's
back
them.
back in the dairy.
People who tick New Zealander on their census form, they reckon that over 90% of those people are white Pākehā New Zealanders. Right? That's what that means. That's what he was saying, which is inappropriate. But I was looking at the role of what Paul Henry does as far as public broadcasting goes, and you go, well, Shock Jock really doesn't fit the bill for a public broadcaster. And then I was looking at the late Walter Cronkite, who passed away recently, and they said that he started off news reading with a puppet in the morning. This puppet was called Charlemagne. And then I was reflecting on something that Paul Henry himself had said in a piece, and he said, oh, I wish I had a puppet here, and then this mad puppet. And it dawned on me that Paul Henry is the mad puppet, but he's a real person, so he has boundaries and he can't go there. If Paul Henry was just a hand and a mad puppet, it would actually probably be really good television.
David, if you read the Paul Henry supporters' comments, the feral, redneck, snarling dog of unchained ignorance is all one can hear with screams of PC madness gone mad. Whether we Auckland Liberals like it or not, Paul Henry is very popular amongst the uneducated, talk-hate radio, Kiwi blog reading crossburners. Why shouldn't those angry white right-wing males have their news reflected to them by an Oompa Loompa of hate?
Because it leads you to the more you encourage intolerance and bigotry, the more intolerant and bigoted a country you get, and the more trouble you get when intolerance and bigotry is acceptable. That's why. There is a valid role for a public broadcaster to try and temper our dark angels. And if people are stupid, then it's the role of a public broadcaster to tell them. Now, I don't care how elitist that sounds. There are aspects of civilization that are good and others that are bad, and if you're heading in the wrong direction and you have a means to redirect, you should bloody use it, and that's what a public broadcaster can do.
Question to both of you. TVNZ have to sack him, don't they, Tim? They've got to sack him.
They love him, and his audience are fanatical, and they possess a very large percentage of those people meter readings, I reckon. And so they will try and keep him. They weathered. Remember Tony Veach? I mean, he was on the news the following day. They have got a tin ear, as David was saying. They have got a tin ear.
Do they have to set? They've got to sack him. Surely TVNZ has to sack him.
I really wish they would. I really wish they would. And
you don't think they will?
They're not going to, are they?
Ratings. Ratings is what really matters. It's either do something really bad to Richie McCaw or lose half his audience. Nothing else will actually...
Okay, question to both of you. Did Key handle this well? His shock during the interview could be excused, but the period of time it took for him to criticise Paul was much later in the afternoon. Did Key's people handle it?
I think they eventually handled it once they realised what the scope was. But initially they thought it had been dealt with. And it's true, if the first thing that anyone had seen was that YouTube clip, or obviously TVNZ wasn't too keen to put it on, but that clip of him and exactly what happened, then people would realise. But it wasn't. It was a transcript. And it was very damaging. Then what Andy Brotherson said an outrageous comment, inviting the audience of mainstream New Zealand to associate with racists, basically. Totally the wrong way to go.
Did Key's people handle it well, or not?
I don't think they did, and here's something to consider about Key's people. They have taken him off Kiwi FM, RDU, BFM, many of the regular slots that previous Prime Ministers have done, week in, week out. They're staying with the ones who give him a comfy chair and say, is your cushion comfy enough, mate? And there is, and I don't think he's been on Morning Report more than 3 or 4 times this year.
That's right.
So
they're shutting him down, aren't they, from any criticism?
First.
Yeah. Tim, who wins and who loses by hearing Paul Henry's race hate?
I think most New Zealanders would understand exactly who Paul Henry is and whether they want to associate with him or not. And it's been great to see Pākehā New Zealanders saying what needs to be said on the matter, but it's also disturbing that often people don't see it. If it was a Maori situation versus Pākehā, they wouldn't see that as racist. So it's interesting what they do, because the guy happens to be Indian, and we went to university with his daughter,
who's a wonderful woman, and he's a great place in Remuera. Been there, lovely, very nice.
Very nice, yes. So
David, who wins and who loses by hearing Paul Henry's race hate?
By doing what to his... By hearing it.
By hearing it.
The whole country loses if intolerance takes hold. And I've had this uneasy feeling for the last couple of years that there's a gathering intolerance, and no good comes of that.
Thank you, panel. Issue 2, the New Zealand Institute for Economic Research put out one of its most damning indictments on the stagnation of our economy, with some of the worst gaps between what they had hoped would happen and what actually happened to the New Zealand economy ever published by them, concluding a double dip is a 50-50 reality. John Key, however, says he's optimistic there won't be a double dip recession because of his tax cuts, 2/3 of which will be going to the wealthiest top third, which according to him will lift the economy over the summer. Tim, if I had $40 million in a Hawaiian mansion, I'd be pretty optimistic as well. Has John Key become a boy in a bubble? How can he be so optimistic about this NZIER data?
Well, he got a tax cut, and so did his mates, and it was interesting, like Paul Holmes was on whatever that breakfast show is that they have that he does, the Q&A show, of course. And he was on there and he was scoffing at the GST increase. Goes, no one I know. Mentioned GST. Because no one he knows catches the bus or whatever, pays the petrol themselves or whatever. And everyone is feeling that. And you see it in that base inelastic prices are all coming up at least 10 cents, because that's what happens, and this will be the spike in inflation. So people will actually, of course he's a boy in a bubble, but the punters will start feeling it, and it will be more than what their tax cuts are.